Namaste. Advaita, Advaitha and Vishishta Advaita. These are the most famous schools of Vedanta within the Sanatana Dharma. Today, we are looking at Vishishta Advaita and Sri Ramanujacharya. In this video, we will briefly look at the worldview of Vishishta Advaita and then we will get to the 7 great objections that Sri Ramanujacharya made on Advaita Vedanta. These are Saptavida Anupapattis, and we will look at how Advaita can answer these objections. Now we are doing this exercise to go deeper into Advaita Vedanta. As you know, our channel is about Advaita and I personally follow the principles and the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. This is not to disrespect any philosophy or any teacher. I personally have tremendous respect for Sri Ramanujacharya and his contributions to Sanatana Dharma. Me and my family have a special relationship to the Tirupati temple in Andhra Pradesh, and a lot of credit for that temple being what it is goes to Sri Ramanujacharya. This is simply about Advaita Vedanta's perspective on these objections and Advaita's worldview. The Advaita channel is about consciousness and conscious creation. Here we explore Vedanta and various other ancient teachings from India to understand the nature of reality and to consciously create our lives. First, let us start with the introduction of Sri Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya was a renowned 11th century Indian philosopher and a theologian. He was the chief proponent of Vishishtadvaita, a sub-school of Vedanta. He is considered one of the most important acharyas in the Sri Vaishnava tradition of Hinduism, and he is one of the main proponents of Bhakti movement in southern India. Ramanujacharya developed the philosophy of Vishishtadvaita or qualified non-dualism. This philosophy substantially differs from Advaita Vedanta, popularized by Adi Shankara. Vishishtadvaita posits that both individual self and material world are real and eternal, being manifestations of Brahman identified as Vishnu. There are 3 core tenets of Vishishtadvaita. Number 1, Brahman, the ultimate reality, consists of 3 real entities. One is Ishvara, God. Second is Jiva, individual souls, and Jagat, universe. These 3 entities are inseparable but distinct. God, which is Vishnu as per Vishishtadvaita, is personal and possesses attributes, unlike the impersonal Brahman of Advaita Vedanta. So God, as per Vishishtadvaita, has form, and this form is of Vishnu. The individual soul is atomic in nature but eternally connected to God. The relationship between God and creation is described as Sharira Shariri Bhava Sambandha, body-soul relationship. Basically, the world and souls are dependent on God but have a real existence of their own. And coming to the path to liberation, Ramanujacharya emphasized bhakti or devotion as the primary means of attaining liberation. He taught that love is the basis for connecting with God, and he emphasized bhakti yoga. The ultimate goal is to realize one's true nature as eternally connected to and dependent on God. This was the worldview. Now we are not diving deep into Vishishtadvaita as a philosophy. This video is about Advaita Vedanta's answer to the objections raised by Sri Ramanujacharya. But we can understand Vishishtadvaita through a simple example. If the forest is considered as this existence or God, then a tree is considered as Jivatma. Although a tree is a part of the forest, tree cannot be called as the forest. In this way, Ramanujacharya argues the entire forest can be looked at as God, whereas a tree is Jivatma, and a tree can never be equated to the forest. This starkly differs from the explanation and the worldview of Advaita Vedanta, as we will understand soon. Now from here on, we will start with the objections raised by Ramanujacharya. We will look at them one by one, and I need to make a note here that we are not going very deep into the objections within each objection, because this debate between Vishishta Advaita and Advaita has been going on for 700 years. So for each objection, Advaita has answered, and for Advaita's answer, there are again secondary objections. But in this video, we will look at this on the surface level. We will understand the 7 objections, and we will look at how we can answer these objections from the point of view of Advaita Vedanta. The first objection is Ashraya Anupapatti, which is about the locus of avidya. What is the locus or support of Maya? Where does avidya reside? If there is any such a thing as Maya or avidya, we are justified in asking for its seat or abode. It cannot exist in Brahman, for the non-duality of Brahman would break down. Moreover, Brahman is said to be pure self-luminous consciousness or knowledge, and avidya means ignorance. Then how can ignorance exist in knowledge? Now this is a very obvious question that we come to when we study Advaita Vedanta. If there is such a thing as Maya, where does it exist? Where does avidya exist? If it exists, then it is apart from Brahman. Then the non-duality of Brahman is lost. How is it Advaita? This is the question. To understand this, we need to go a little deep, and we need to grasp the definition of avidya or ignorance. And we need to also understand the subtle difference between avidya and Maya. Basically, avidya is ignorance that exists at a causal level within each and every one of us as per Advaita Vedanta and Shankaracharya. And because of avidya, the way we perceive this reality and the reality that is projected is Maya. So avidya is within us and Maya is the result of avidya. Now Ramanujacharya here is asking for the seat of avidya. Where is this avidya? To understand this, let us understand the definition of avidya or ignorance. Now Shankaracharya, as per my understanding, has not specifically answered this question. He has said that the very question comes from the place of ignorance. The very question of where avidya lies comes from the place of avidya, says Shankara. But let us go deeper here to understand the nature of avidya. To do this, let us look at an example. I am right now ignorant of trigonometry. I have avidya of trigonometry. Now, let us try to find the locus of avidya. Locus of where my ignorance of trigonometry is. Is ignorance a positive entity? Do I actually have an object or an entity called ignorance of trigonometry? No. Within my mind or within my brain, is there a place where the ignorance of trigonometry exists? No. But does that mean I'm not ignorant of trigonometry? Again, no. Ignorance by its nature, avidya by its nature, is not a positive entity to exist. It is neither something which doesn't exist. So avidya is anirvachaniya. It is neither a positive entity, it neither exists, it is nor a negative entity. We cannot say it doesn't exist also. This is true for all kinds of ignorance, whether it is trigonometry or whether it is the nature of self. Avidya by its nature is anirvachaniya. It neither exists nor it doesn't exist. So we cannot point to a place where ignorance exists, because ignorance is simply a concept. Avidya is simply a concept or a pointer which is pointing towards the absence of knowledge. It is not a positive entity by itself. So let us leave this question here. Ignorance is not a positive entity, and hence it cannot constitute a separate second from Brahman. So the non-duality of Brahman is not lost as per the worldview of Advaita Vedanta. Now let's look at the second objection of Ramanujacharya. The second objection is Trirodha Anupapatti. The question is, how can avidya conceal Brahman? If avidya conceals Brahman, then Brahman is not self-conscious or self-luminous subject. If Brahman is of the nature of self-luminosity and pure knowledge, ignorance cannot cover or veil its essence. It is as absurd as to say that darkness can hide light. So this is the second objection. How can ignorance cover knowledge? How can darkness cover light itself? To this, let us understand the nature of avidya or maya first. Now, I have found a very interesting book, which is an old book which was published in 1997 called The Scientific Approach to Shankara Vedanta. And in this book, Maya is described in this way. Empirically speaking, Maya is the causal potentiality of the world of superimposition projected by avidya, and it is but a special aspect of Brahman which evolves itself into the world, but Brahman in its true nature and real nature is above all causation. So, this book is describing Maya and avidya in this way. Maya is simply the causal potential within Brahman. Brahman is the infinite potential. Brahman is infinite existence. Although there is infinite potential within Brahman, it is unaffected by it. Just like within our dream, whatever happens, all the duality, all the separation, and all the variety was all a simulation of our own mind, and the matter that exists within the dream is same in and through. This world is consciousness. This world is Brahman, and the duality and Maya is simply the causal potential of Brahman within that Brahman. But because of our avidya, because of our ignorance, we are not seeing the underlying reality of oneness within everyone and within everything, and instead we are perceiving duality. So our avidya is causing us to experience the creative potential of Brahman in a dualistic way, and it is separating us from our true essence. Simply by removing our ignorance, we can look at everything as Brahman and see oneness in all. So, this is how we can understand Maya and avidya. And like we discussed earlier, avidya is simply ignorance. It is neither positive nor negative. Now, to the question of how avidya can conceal Brahman, the answer of Advaita Vedanta is pretty simple. Now, from the perspective of a human being, when clouds obscure sun, we experience darkness. We do not experience the light of sun. This doesn't mean the sun has diminished somehow. Sun is always self-luminous, but because of the clouds, because of the nature of clouds, we do not experience sun during some times. Just like this, Brahman is self-luminous and Brahman is consciousness. It is because of our avidya that we are not experiencing that consciousness. And just like how the obstruction of sun through the clouds does not affect the sun, our avidya of Brahman doesn't affect Brahman. Brahman is pure existence and it is ever free. To this, Vishishtadvaitin goes deeper and asks another question. So if Brahman is knowledge and if Jiva can attain that Brahma through knowledge, then Brahman becomes the object, because anything that can be attained through knowledge is the object. But you are describing Brahman as the subject. How do you explain this logical fallacy? To answer this, we must go even deeper. We need to understand the concept of vritti vyapti and phala vyapti here. Basically, whenever we understand anything and whenever we get the knowledge of any object, these two things take place. These things happen simultaneously, but let us understand them by looking at them one by one. When you look at this pen, at first, an image of this pen is formed within your mind. This is called vritti vyapti. Vritti is basically a thought. A thought of this pen is created within your mind. This is called vritti vyapti. Then the reflected consciousness which is within you, which is the awareness that you have because of the infinite consciousness, illumines this vritti and takes possession of it. And you say, I know this pen, or I have this pen. This I is the phala vyapti. First, an image is created, which is vritti vyapti. Then the phala is created, which is the phala vyapti. And these things happen simultaneously within a fraction of a second. So, this is how we need to understand knowledge generally. But according to Advaita Vedanta, Brahma Jnana is different, because that Brahman or that infinite consciousness, is our own true nature. So, in order to gain this Brahma Jnana, as per Advaita Vedanta, we need to first of all purify the mind and sharpen the intellect, and then a vritti is needed. This vritti vyapti is needed, but this is a special kind of vritti called akhandakara vritti. Basically, when this vritti is formed through the study of Vedanta, through meditation, through deep contemplation, etc., immediately the mind turns inward, and phalavyapti, or the awareness illumining the thought, is not necessary, because as the mind is turned inward, the infinite consciousness, which is always there, will take care of the rest. It is always there. That point cannot be described. So, for any kind of ordinary knowledge, vritti vyapti and phalavyapti both are necessary, whereas for Brahma Jnana, phalavyapti is not needed. So, Brahma Jnana is different from all other kinds of knowledge, and hence Brahman is not objectified here, and Brahman still remains the subject. This is the answer given by Advaita. So, the second objection we have covered. The third objection is Svarupa Anupapatti. What is the nature of this avidya? Is it positive, which means real, or negative, or both, or neither? If it is positive, then how can it be avidya? Avidya means ignorance, and ignorance means absence of knowledge. To regard ignorance as positive is to accept self-contradiction. Moreover, if ignorance is positive, how can it ever be destroyed? No positive entity can be destroyed. And if it is negative, then how can it project this world illusion on Brahman? To say that avidya is both positive and negative is to embrace self-contradiction, and to say that it is neither positive nor negative is to give up all logic. So this is another strong objection by Vishishtadvaita on Advaita. Is avidya positive or negative? Give us a straight answer. To this, Advaita says, again, avidya or maya is mithya. It is an appearance. Is appearance something that is real, or is it something unreal? Is avidya or ignorance a positive entity, or is it a negative entity? Like we looked at in the earlier section, my ignorance of trigonometry is neither a positive entity by itself. It doesn't exist. Neither it is negative. We cannot say it doesn't exist also. So it is neither positive nor negative. But the question is how something which is negative can project the universe. But like Advaita says, it is neither negative. Mithya is sat asat vilakshana. It is neither real nor unreal. Let us understand the nature of ignorance deeper here. The ignorance that I have of trigonometry has no beginning to it. If someone asks, from when are you ignorant about trigonometry? I should say, I don't know, from an infinite amount of time. Because any ignorance, by definition and by its nature, neither positive nor negative, and it is beginningless. Ignorance is simply a concept. This is the answer of Advaita Vedanta. And when someone asks for the cause of this avidya, the question of cause itself is a product of Maya. Swami Vivekananda describes Maya as time, space and causality. Basically, our mind can never understand something which is beyond time, which exists simply without respecting time. And also our mind cannot understand something which is beyond space, which exists in and through, like Brahman. And also our mind cannot understand something which is beyond causality, which simply exists by itself without any cause, without any beginning. This is beyond mind, and our mind is a product of Maya. That is why we are stuck with this question, because we are trying to comprehend something which is beyond our mind, which is beyond the boundaries of the mind. So the answer is, the question of cause itself comes from the place of ignorance, from the boundaries of the mind, and Maya and consciousness are both beginningless. They are beyond time. And again to the question of Vishishtadvaita, which says, tell us whether avidya is real or not, Advaita Vedanta provides another framework for us to understand this better. Advaita Vedanta divides or segregates this reality into three parts. One is Pratibhasika Satya or illusory reality. Second is Vyavaharika Satya or transactional reality. And third is Paramarthika Satya or absolute reality. Let us understand this through the simple example of the dream. When we are within the dream, we go through different experiences as the dream ego. Now, when we are within the dream, we are not the person who we are right now. We are the dream ego, which is having an illusory dream experience. This is the pratibhasika level. This is the illusory level. Once we wake up from our dream into this waking world, this is vyavaharika satya or transactional reality as per Advaita Vedanta. And once we wake up from this reality, we reach the absolute level or paramarthika satya where only Brahman exists. Now, when you ask the question of whether something is real or not, it depends on the level of reality. Within my dream experience, if I was walking in the forest and if someone had asked me, is the forest real? I would have said, yes, the forest is real, because at that point in time, for me, that is the reality. I am ignorant of my true nature as the person who is sleeping on the bed. So for me, the forest is real at that point in time. But at the same time, once I wake up from the dream, if someone comes and asks me, was that forest real? I would say, no, it was not real, because it was a temporary experience that I was going through. So something can be real and not real at the same time, depending on the level of reality. Although this universe is real right now, for us, this is not real from the absolute perspective. This is only a temporary phenomenon, and this is a lower reality. At the fundamental level, only God exists, only consciousness exists, and everything else exists within him, and everything is him. This is Advaita. The fourth objection is Anirvachaniya Anupapatti, or the undefinability. Avidya is defined by Advaita as indefinable. It is described as indescribable. This is a clear self-contradiction. To avoid this, Advaita says that avidya is not absolutely indescribable, but it cannot be described either as real or as unreal. A thing must be either real or unreal. There is no third alternative. All our cognitions relate to either entities or non-entities. To refute this is to refuse to think. So how can avidya be undefinable or indescribable? It should either be an entity or it should be a non-entity. There is no third kind of a thing in this universe, says Vishishtadvaita. To this, the answer is similar to what we looked at earlier. Avidya is ignorance. It is neither a positive entity nor a negative entity. It is real because it is experienced. Maya is real because we are experiencing this world. It is unreal because it can be destroyed. Once we wake up, we come out of this reality. Just like how when we wake up from the dream reality, that reality gets destroyed in a sense, and we wake up to this waking level of reality. When we are awakened and when we wake up from this reality, we wake up to the absolute level where we experience the true nature of reality as that infinite consciousness. Just like how we looked at the three levels of reality earlier, we can understand this. Avidya is both real and unreal depending on from which perspective we are looking at it. This universe is real for us right now. The dream reality that we experience is real for us when we are within the dream simulation, but it is not real once we wake up. This is the point that we must grasp. The next objection is Pramana Anupapatti. By what pramana or means of valid cognition is avidya cognized? Avidya cannot be perceived, for perception can give us either an entity or a non-entity. It cannot be inferred, for inference proceeds through a valid mark or middle term which avidya lacks. Nor it can be maintained on the authority of the scriptures, for they declare Maya to be real, wonderful creation of God. So the Vishishtadvaita is saying here that the world is real because God is real. If the world is unreal, then even God becomes unreal, because that which is unreal only can project something which is unreal, and something which is real can only create or manifest something which is real. So if we say the world is unreal, we are indirectly saying that God is unreal. This is the fifth objection of Vishishtadvaita. To this, Advaita answers, the cause and effect need not be always at the same level of reality, and it need not be always one and the same. So for the objection of the illusory object must have an illusory cause, Advaita Vedanta says this is not necessarily the case. Advaita gives the example of the oasis in a desert. Although the desert is real, the water or the lake that appears as oasis within the desert is illusory. So the world, because of avidya, the way we perceive it, is something like this. Although the underlying source or the consciousness is real, the duality and everything that we are seeing right now is simply an appearance and it is unreal. Now let us come to the sixth objection, that is Nivartaka Anupapatti. There is no remover of avidya. Advaita believes that knowledge of the unqualified attributeless Brahman removes avidya, but such knowledge is impossible. Pure identity is mere abstraction. Identity is always qualified by difference and distinction. Here Vishishtadvaita is saying that Brahman is always seen with attributes. Whatever we perceive in this world, there is a form associated to it, there is a color associated to it, and there are qualities associated to it. But you are saying Brahman is attributeless. Brahman is pure consciousness or the pure witness. How can this pure consciousness be the remover of avidya if such a thing as avidya exists in the first place? This is the question. To this, Advaita Vedanta gives the example of the deep sleep. Advaita Vedanta says, when we are in deep sleep, we experience the absence of experience. We experience that attributeless Brahman, which has no forms, which has no qualities to it. So through this example, we can understand that there is something which is beyond qualities and beyond all forms. So Advaita says that Brahman is attributeless because it is experienced without attributes in the deep sleep. Whatever is experienced without qualities is in fact attributeless. And then Ramanujacharya says, Brahman is always explained in the scriptures with attributes. Brahman is explained as Satchit Ananda. So how can that Brahman be attributeless, says Vishishtadvaita. To this Advaita Vedanta says, these sentences should not be taken literally. For example, when we say there is a purple lotus, we are not saying there is something which is purple, there is something which is lotus. The purple lotus, both words are pointing towards the same thing. So, since that Brahman is indescribable and incomprehensible, these words are mere pointers to the nature of Brahman. Satchit, Ananda, all three are simply pointers to that ultimate reality and they represent the same thing as per Advaita Vedanta. And now let us come to the last objection, that is Nivritti Anupapatti. In the last objection, we discussed how there is no remover of avidya. This objection says there is no removal of avidya. It says if there is something called as avidya, the removal of it is not possible logically. A thing which positively exists cannot be removed from existence by knowledge. The bondage of the soul is due to karma, which is a concrete reality and cannot be removed by abstract knowledge. It can be removed by karma, jnana, bhakti and prasada. The ignorance of the soul is destroyed when karmas are destroyed and through the mercy of the Lord. So this is the objection. To this Advaita Vedanta says, knowledge simply reveals something. It reveals something that already exists. It doesn't technically destroy anything. If we look at the example of trigonometry again, let's say if I study trigonometry and if I gain the knowledge of trigonometry, technically the knowledge of trigonometry did not destroy anything, did not destroy the ignorance as such. We need to use this kind of language, but technically there is no destruction that is taking place. What Advaita says is that Brahma Jnana simply reveals to us the essence of who we truly are. It technically doesn't destroy anything, but it simply illumines us and it shows us or reveals to us our own true essence. And then Advaita says even this knowledge is mithya. This knowledge also, once its job is done, it simply vanishes. The scriptures, the study of Vedanta, all of it is only for us to realize our true nature. Once it does its job, it is destroyed along with the ignorance. So the point is technically nothing is destroyed and technically both avidya and jnana is mithya. It is an apparent knowledge which is an antidote for the apparent ignorance. So these were the 7 objections, and we only looked at these objections from the surface level. There is a lot of debate that goes into each of these objections which we have not covered. This video was just about giving you an overview of these objections and how Advaita Vedanta can answer them and how we can make our understanding of Advaita Vedanta deeper with this. Personally, for me, all of these philosophies are models of reality. And for me, Advaita Vedanta makes most sense, and it is the most clear way to understand this reality.